We are breaking down more details in the horrific Apalachee school shooting that left 4 people dead and several injured. And as we discuss the investigation and what we know so far, there is an apparent connection to the Parkland school shooting. And with that, it's time to bring on the former judge who oversaw that case and get her take on this massacre. Elizabeth Scherer is back with us once again. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Hey everybody, good to be back with all of you. I missed you guys. I was out on vacation, but I saw Sierra Gillespie and Elizabeth Milner. They did a fantastic job filling in for me. I want to thank them for the great work that they did. But now I am back. I want to get into it. And as I was away, I saw the tragic news, like the rest of you saw it, of another school shooting. This one at Apalachee High School in Winder, Georgia. This is apparently the deadliest school shooting since the March 2023 shooting at the Covenant School in Nashville, Tennessee. This shooting has left 2 14-year-old students dead, Christian Angulo and Mason Schemmerhorn, as well as teachers Richard Aspinwall, 39 years old, and Christina 53 years old. Apparently, she was celebrating her birthday with her students that day. 8 other students and a teacher were injured in the attack as well, though it's being reported that they're all expected to recover. It's just devastating, just devastating. And the suspected shooter, 14-year-old Colt Gray, apparently surrendered on scene, was arrested, now faces 4 counts of felony murder. He's going to be tried as an adult, although the death sentence won't be on the table since he was a minor at the time of the alleged crimes. The Supreme Court has ruled that a defendant can't be sentenced to death for crimes that were committed when they were under the age of 18. So essentially, he's looking at life in prison with or without parole if he's convicted or he takes a deal. Now, I should also tell you that it is expected that he will face additional charges for those who were injured. And at the time of this broadcast, Gray hasn't entered a plea, although I should tell you it is being reported that the teen allegedly confessed to law enforcement, saying, "I did it." The teen's father, Colin Gray, has also been criminally charged with murder, manslaughter, cruelty to children, for allegedly providing his son with the semi-automatic AR-15 style rifle. And while we'll get into that in a minute about why he's being charged, he faces reportedly almost 200 years in prison if he's convicted on all the charges. He's also, at the time of this recording, not entered a plea. But this is the first time a parent in Georgia has been charged for the actions of their child in a school shooting. But obviously, we all know this is eerily reminiscent of the situation at the Oxford school shooting out in Michigan, where parents Jennifer and James Crumbly were found guilty of manslaughter for their role in supplying the weapon, not securing it, not preventing the shooting from happening after their teen son opened fire. By the way, I have to say, thank you so much for coming to us for our coverage of the shooting. That's not something we take lightly. We really appreciate your trust in us. And honestly, we're able to continue to do this and provide these stories and provide this analysis because of the support that not only we get from you guys, but also our sponsors. And if I can, I'd just like to highlight one in particular right now, Upside. Now, here's the funny thing about Upside. I was just away in Europe, and I was saying to myself, how much I wish I had it going from shop to shop and store to store, because Upside is a free app, and here in the United States, you can use it to get cash back on daily essentials like gas and groceries. For example, when I pump my gas, if I use Upside, I could potentially get cash back, real cash back, money that appears in your Upside app that you can transfer straight into your bank account. So once you have the Upside app, you claim an offer for whatever you're buying on Upside, you pay as usual using a debit or credit card, and you follow the steps on the app and you get paid. So to find out how much you could earn, click the link in the description to download Upside or scan the QR code on screen and use our promo code SIDEBAR and you'll get an extra 25 cents back on every gallon on your first tank of gas. Hope you can check it out. So now we have this new case and we're learning more about the shooter here, his purported family situation, the particulars of the shooting. And I want to bring on someone right now who unfortunately has experience with this kind of situation. Former Judge Elizabeth Scherer, who presided over the case of the Parkland school shooter out in Florida, the shooter who opened fire at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, killing 17 people. She's now in private practice at Conrad and Sherer. Judge, thanks so much for coming on. I wanted to talk to you about this for a variety of legal reasons, but also, as I mentioned, your connection to one of the most infamous school shootings in American history. When you hear something like this, what's your reaction?
Honestly, I'm mad. I'm mad. I'm disgusted. I can't sleep. This brings back such bad memories, and I can't believe that we're here again. Once again, I can't believe that the adults who protect these children, who are in charge of protecting children and raising children, are letting this happen in another school again. I mean, it physically makes me sick. I haven't spoken to any of the parents from the Parkland shooting since this happened, quite frankly, because I'm trying to give them some space to just because, as I'm sure um, one step forward and two steps back. They're all trying to take proactive measures to prevent these type of tragedies. And if this is painful for me, I didn't even have a student at the school. I just sort of was an observer um, of this tragedy, and if it's upsetting me, I can't even imagine how I call my parents feel, and not to mention the parents of these children and students. It's disgusting.
And I want to get into that about responsibility, but one of the disturbing things that's being reported and something that has a direct connection to your case is that apparently, as law enforcement had searched Gray's home, they allegedly found writings from Gray that referenced past school shootings, including Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. So what do you think about that? Because we always talk about the danger of copycats, those who get inspired by school shootings. To hear that, if true, what's your reaction?
Well, he's a sociopath, a psychopath. He wants to do as much harm to as many people as possible. So people like the Parkland school shooter, also a psychopath, also a sociopath, somebody who has no remorse and no qualms about, open hunting season on human beings. This is not a human being we're dealing with. These are not human beings that we're dealing with. These are a very small member of the population who get inspired by other sociopaths or psychopaths.
Can we get into these warning signs a bit? Because I think it's important to mention. Now, it's being reported that in May of 2023, law enforcement had actually questioned Colt Gray. He was 13 years old, and they questioned his father about online threats to commit a school shooting, and that included photos of guns. This is according to a joint statement from the FBI Atlanta office and the Jackson County Sheriff's Office. Reportedly, these threats were allegedly made on the online platform Discord. According to CNN, the Post said, "I'm committing a mass shooting and I'm waiting a good 2 to 3 years." And it also said, "I can't kill myself yet because I'm not contributing anything to culture. I need to go out knowing I did." And then above a picture of 2 guns, the account posted, "I'm ready." Now, a Discord spokesperson told CNN that it had removed an account that they believed was associated with Colt Gray because it violated the site's policy against extremism. But here's the thing. At the time, the teen denied that he made these threats. That's what he said to law enforcement. They said even as a joke, he didn't mean it. And authorities couldn't corroborate these claims. There was no probable cause, and the investigation was closed. Now, it's not clear if the school knew about this, but it is being reported that Colin Gray, again, the shooter's father, bought him the gun in December of 2023, only a few months later. So, Judge, let's start right there. Should we place any blame on law enforcement here, or is that not fair?
The problem is, Jesse, and this is where we are failing our children. This is a common sense, bipartisan, home run situation that could have been, when I say that, I mean Florida. The week after the shooting, our legislature, in a bipartisan joint compromise, passed the Risk Protection Act, which says that if law enforcement believes that somebody is a danger to themselves or others and they possess firearms, they can go into the house and they can take them away. And a judge like me can issue a very simple order saying, you're not to possess guns, you may not buy guns until you complete some type of rehabilitation plan. And if you are not able to be rehabilitated, you don't get your guns back. So when I say it's a bipartisan home run, this is not a situation where we have the big gun lobby versus those who are in favor of gun control. even the big gun lobby, even the NRA cannot debate or go against a measure like the one that was taken in Florida with the Risk Protection Act. In other words, they can't argue that sociopaths or psychopaths who, like I said, want to declare open hunting season on children should have guns. Even the harsh NRA, the big gun lobby, did not fight this act in Florida. It was passed by an overwhelming majority in Florida. And it's just too bad that our neighbors in Georgia did not take our lead and get something like this passed, because this should never happen. The police have their hands tied. If someone doesn't commit a crime, they put a threat out there on whatever the social media platform is. They can't, there's nothing they can do. That's the problem. But it is so simple. It's so simple, Jesse. You pass an act like the one that was passed in Florida. We have saved so many lives. We have prevented so many tragedies. It's as simple as that. And that was passed in our state by a very, it was Rick Scott, a very conservative governor. But he got it passed and he got it done right away. Why are other states not following in our footsteps?
And that's fair. When we think about it, though, in terms of who's responsible, how this could be prevented, that's what we always ask in these kinds of school shooting situations. You put the police to the side. I want to actually talk about the school, too, and the family, because Gray's aunt reportedly said that Colt Gray's mom had contacted the school just before the shooting and told the school to find her son, citing, quote, an extreme emergency. Reportedly, the suspected shooter had texted his mom, "I'm sorry." The Washington Post also reported that there are text messages that show Gray's family had reached out to the school about a week before the shooting, citing concerns that he was having homicidal and suicidal thoughts. And Judge, if this is true, what does that mean in terms of the legal case for both of these individuals and the school's responsibility? Because I will also tell you, it's being reported that one of the students had observed both the suspected shooter and another student with apparently a similar name leave the classroom. There may have been a mix-up as an administrator was looking for Gray and searched the other student's backpack. The county sheriff, the Barrow County Sheriff, Judge Smith, told this girl's mother at a press conference that I think your information is incorrect, but it's still being reported about this. So if you have this, the family was reaching out, that the mom was contacting the school, that they might have been looking for Colt Gray before the shooting happened, what does that tell you?
I mean, unfortunately, there's always so many things that you can go back and look at and say, what if this didn't happen? What if that didn't happen? What if this didn't happen? In Parkland, there were so many different variables. Like, why did they have the front gate open? Why didn't they have more school security? Why did they have the bathrooms locked so the kids couldn't get inside the bathroom? All sorts of things. Why did they not have protective measures in place? But let me just say this. After everything that has happened in this country, the schools owe the children. First of all, let's just go back for a minute. Our lawmakers owe these children more when there are simple laws that can be passed that are agreeable by both sides. That's number one. Number two, the way to prevent this is to have the specific active shooter training that every school should have in place, so that not only the administration, but the security guards, the children, everybody knows what happens when there is a situation like this or a threat of this type of situation. I don't know if these kids in this school were prepared for this, but it seems to me like they weren't. That's the second thing. The other thing is, why do we not have proper security in all of these schools? Why isn't our government funding the proper school resource officers, police officers that are in the school that are prepared to deal with these situations? So whether or not the school's to blame, I don't know. I'm sure they play some part in it, because when you go back and examine these type of tragedies, it seems like everything goes wrong. Like it's just, the sun and the moon and the stars are aligned at the same time on the same day, and that's how these things are carried out, unfortunately. But we need to do better. The parents, the schools, the legislature, we all need to do better. There are ways that we can prevent these tragedies, and that's what is so frustrating to me, to be hearing this once again.
Those are fair questions and fair issues. I wanted to talk about that, but I also wanted to talk about the charges here because I think that's another unique aspect, and I mentioned it. So if we go back to the father, Colt Gray, I mean, the idea that he had a warning sign about his son. The police are coming a year ago talking about alleged threats that are made on Discord, and then he buys him, or allegedly buys him, the gun. You can see how problematic that is, but I am curious how complicated this prosecution is. Why do I say that? Because the Georgia Bureau of Investigation Director Chris Hosey said at a news conference last week that Colt Gray, quote, knowingly allowed his son to possess a weapon. This is why he's being charged. In Georgia, there's no minimum age to possess a rifle. Minors, they can't have handguns, but rifles is a different story. And focusing on the charges for the father, involuntary manslaughter. I mean, we saw this in the Crumbly case. Usually we're talking about recklessness, talking about foreseeability, not about intent to kill, but, that it was reckless, handing him the weapon when he knew about what was going on with the son. I can see the same kind of argument as we saw in Crumbly. But the murder charge is interesting, right? Second-degree murder, and my understanding is in Georgia that a person commits the offense of murder in the second degree, I'm reading the statute, when in the commission of cruelty to children in the second degree, he or she causes the death of another human being irrespective of malice. So it's second-degree murder because they're saying that the father committed cruelty to children. What do you make of these charges that the father faces?
It seems to me like he's being charged as a principal, which is basically you just have to assist, aid, or otherwise help the person commit the act itself. It seems to me, unless there's other information that we don't know yet, that he's being charged as a principal, and a principal can be charged with the same crime in the same degree and face the same punishment as the main person, the main actor, this being the 14-year-old child. So the child is committing, I think you said, heinous child abuse upon children with the disregard. And in my mind, I'm getting the Florida statute mixed up with what you said, but I did hear you. And it sounds to me like he's being charged as a principal so that they can charge him with the maximum penalty under Georgia law.
Yeah, I guess the question is, involuntary manslaughter would make sense, right? I mean, look, makes sense. You provide the weapon to the son. Look, after the Crumbly case, it always became a question, is every parent of a school shooting, because we knew that wasn't going to be the last one, is every parent of a school shooting going to be criminally charged? And the questions will be, was the gun provided to the shooter or the suspected shooter by the parents? Was it not properly locked, not properly secured? Were there warning signs? And this case will develop. More details will come out. I can see a case for this, for why it would maybe be involuntary manslaughter, but I also feel it's complicated in a way. And it's complicated, I think, by the murder charge. You're saying that this father had a duty to the children. And here's what I go back to, that this father committed murder because he was committing cruelty to children. There's a specific statute in Georgia that I think applies here. Cruelty to children is when any person, so not just the parent, not somebody who's just watching the children, any person commits the offense of cruelty to children in the second degree when such person with criminal negligence causes a child under the age of 18 cruel or excessive physical or mental pain. I guess what I'm trying to get at is this a straightforward case for prosecutors to prove murder and involuntary manslaughter, or is it going to be complicated for them to prove the elements?
Well, there's a couple of things here. First of all, that specific statute that you just read to me seems like was passed with foster children in mind. You said it could be any person,
yeah,
or a situation of a daycare. Unfortunately, we see a lot of cases where daycare workers are charged with, punishing a child, committing corporal punishment on a child and causing great bodily harm and cruelty to children. It seems to me like the law was passed for those two specific instances. However, in this case, I'm very familiar with the Oxford case. That's a clear case of negligence. In this case, the police told this father a year before this incident happened that your child is posting threats about shooting up a school and you have guns in the home. Are the guns secure? The father says, no, they're not, but he knows he's not allowed to use them. But since you've come to me and you've told me this, my guns will be secure. So the fact that he had knowledge of what the child was threatening to do to the children, whereas in the Oxford case, the parents were negligent and there were some warning signs that he was displaying troubling behavior, but there was no direct, I'm going to shoot up the school, where the parents knew that and then went ahead and provided the firearm.
Right.
So I think that the Georgia prosecution is going for a home run in this case. I agree with it. I think that's the trend in this country. I think that the prosecutors around this country are trying to find a way to get this to stop, and they're trying to, do their part and say, look, if you are what I call committing felony stupidity, where you're a parent, you're sticking your head in the sand and you're not paying attention to what your child is doing, or worse, in this case, what was the guy thinking? I mean, what are you thinking? Your child makes a threat and you have rifles in your home that you're allowing a 14-year-old to access? And dad's excuse to the police, well, my kid's bullied. Well, which one is it? Is he not? Is there no way that your child would do this? There's no way that he meant this? Or is your child reacting to a situation? That's two separate scenarios. So obviously this father was not displaying good judgment or good parenting, in my opinion.
And if it's proven that he did know that his son was being bullied, you could argue that's even more cause for you to realize there was even more proof that you should have realized something was a problem here. So I can understand why he's being charged. I'm curious to see what the defenses will be. And before I let you go, Judge, I wanted to go back to this 14-year-old, because as I mentioned, he is going to be tried as an adult. That's the law in Georgia. If you're of a juvenile between 13 and 17, you're charged with a serious crime like murder, you are automatically tried as an adult. So it's our understanding he will spend his time in the Georgia Department of Juvenile Justice until he turns 17. That's the way the law would work. But if he's convicted, do you think the law is correct on that, though? I mean, what are the complications of trying someone that young? I mean, he is young, but at the same time, they have this on the books. Do you think it's the right course of action here?
100%. A sociopath is a sociopath. If you're 14 years old and you can basically hunt other human beings with no remorse, and by the way, every school shooter says, oh, I was going to kill myself. But, well, why didn't he? He could have. He had plenty of time to. He had guns. He knew how to use them. He didn't kill himself. He killed other people. That's the type of person that cannot be rehabilitated, that needs to be locked up for the better and the good of the community and the other people in the community, because there is absolutely no.
And you believe life in prison without the possibility of parole, because if this becomes in front of a judge where they would have to make that decision, you think it should be life in prison without the possibility of parole?
Well, I believe that judges in all of the states, based on a Supreme Court ruling, are required to at least consider the possibility of parole, at least put that on the table. But I'll tell you that I've heard expert testimony from numerous psychologists, psychiatrists, that sociopaths cannot be rehabilitated. They are just born wrong. And I believe that a person that commits this type of crime is going to be placed into that box, sociopath, and if he is in fact found to be one, there's no rehabilitating him.
Judge, before I let you go, I still have one more thing I wanted to ask you.
Sure.
So there are these absolutely harrowing accounts of those who survive, particularly the children. Everything from barricading the doors to prevent this suspected shooter from coming in, to using clothing as tourniquets to stop bleeding. And I am sure hearing those accounts brings back painful memories of what you heard at your trial, at the trial that you presided over, but it also shows the bravery of these people who are in that situation. What's your reaction to hearing those accounts?
I mean, most people are good. Most people are strong. Most people will do the right thing if placed in a situation. So the fact that these kids were brave and using tourniquets and helping one another does not surprise me one bit, because human beings react in positive, most human beings react in positive, good, heroic ways when they're placed in that type of situation. And that's what I think the world needs to remember, that the child that committed the shooting is the very small minority. The rest of the people are good, and human beings are good by nature. And I choose to believe that. That's how I get through these things. That's how I don't just, throw my hands in the air. I mean, it's infuriating that we have this happening over and over. But we do have to remember that this is a small minority that are committing these types of acts. And my heart goes out to those kids and the families. And I can't imagine. I mean, I can imagine, but I can't. On the other hand, hearing about these types of things is a lot different than living it. And especially as a parent, getting news like this, and a child having to go on with their lives and continue in school and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
My heart breaks for them, but they will survive, just like the victims of Parkland.
They shouldn't. It's a
shouldn't
separate conversation. They shouldn't have to. It's a separate conversation
No.
about the legislation, like you mentioned, that should maybe be aimed at stopping this. But what I can tell you is
let's hope that we have a special session right now with the Georgia legislature. Let's hope that special session starts today and that they get that law passed. All they have to do is look down just a little bit, one state down to Florida. They can copy our laws. They can copy all of the. They can copy the whole thing. I'm sure we'd be happy to give it to them and get that passed.
It's
going to take everybody working together to prevent these things, to keep these things from happening in the future.
Yeah, because I'll tell you one thing. It's far too many. I think it was over 40-something shootings in the past year, which is just crazy to think about. Judge Scherer, thank you for coming on. Appreciate your perspective, and I know talking about this isn't easy, but again, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us, and as always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.